Well, thank you guys so much for joining today. I'm so glad to get Cydney and Jason on. I know, Cydney, we talk on the Facebook groups a lot and talk, kind of correspond online, but to really, I don't think we've ever worked together in all the time that we've been doing this. So I'm so glad. Thank you guys so much. We have a 2 for the price of 1 today with some of the best looking video and audio we have, because we have a fellow pro on the other end giving me good stuff today. Normally it's just like webcams and stuff. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves and tell us who you are and what you do?
So I'm Cydney, and I started Lavender Bouquet photography back in the summer of 2011. I was just shooting by myself. I really had no idea what I was doing. I think I bought my camera with tax refund money. That was my first, which is pretty much most of us, how we start out. So I started out, and then Jason joined me. I had already known him, but we weren't talking at the time. And then we ended up dating and getting engaged and started shooting together. So,
yeah. And I got into photography. I think I bought an Olympus. Like when I was 18, I told my dad, I was like, if you're going to get me something for my birthday, get me an Olympus, because it was like the new thing that was out, and I didn't have a clue what I was talking about. And then I bought a Pentax. And that's when I met Sid, and I was really into photography in general. And then she was shooting weddings. We met on Craigslist. It's kind of how we did things back then when that was a thing. And so she started shooting weddings and stuff. And I used to own a recording studio. And I've recorded a couple hundred bands and stuff like that. And I was really into audio and just media driven stuff, anywhere I could be creative. And she would come by my studio and stuff. And I guess you had a crush on me. Mm-hmm. And so I guess, because we're married with 3 kids now. So,
yeah, it worked out.
And yeah. So then I started shooting video, and then, with her shooting weddings, I got kind of sick of the editing side. And then I was like, let's just do stills together. And that kind of evolved into what Lavender Bouquet photography is right now. Is I just really wanted to push the limits of lighting and stuff like that, and just kind of, I don't know, do something different. But I think who we were when we started it's changed out a lot, in the sense of the way technology is today. People are starting to do the same kind of style that we're doing more and more. The younger amateur group is starting to, I mean, the level of quality of things that are coming out now are insane. Is just good. Going up, which is great, because, technology is so accessible now. So, yeah. So photography, we've been doing it for 9 years now. Is it 9 years?
Yeah, that's 9 years.
Yeah. And so I worked in construction for about 17 years. I was a drywall taper and steel stud framer and stuff like that.
And he's not that old. He's 37,
yeah.
But yeah. He started doing that stuff when he was like a teenager.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I did the stupid thing of dropping out in 7th grade and homeschooling myself and trying to figure out my way in the world. And I worked for a company, and they kind of messed up. And I told myself I would never work for anyone else again. And that's when the recording studio thing happened, and then the photography thing. And we've just been pushing with that. COVID, of course, has changed a lot. But I think we were just kind of talking about this today, and I was telling Sid, I was like, it's kind of interesting because, like the fires we have in California and Oregon and all this smoke
here.
And then COVID's kind of like a fire in itself with the industry. And what it's going to do is it's going to brush and weed out all that saturation we had in the market. Some of it. And it's those people who can't sustain won't be, and the people that can will. And so I think it's, in a way, it's a curse.
It's a great calling.
And in a way, it's a good thing, because I think that's the biggest thing here in Washington. I came from Idaho, Boise, Idaho. And now it's here in Washington, it's just the market's so saturated, which is a great thing. I love that people want be involved in being creative in photography. But it's crazy. But it's fun, because you got to just be better. So,
yeah, I mean, I've always said that I would not even know how to market myself at all as a photographer, there's just so much. And like you said, we just had Greg Louder will have been on the podcast before you guys as a DJ, right? And having done it for a long time. And like you said, when you guys got in and like when he got in even longer ago than any of us, like just the bar was so low, right? And it was really easy to kind of raise that. And now that we're all in it, and like you said, where you guys have been doing it for almost a decade, and now then, the people are coming up and it's raising that, but it also makes it just, you always got to stay on top of the ball, right? I mean, you always got to be producing. And I know that you guys, and I was going to say with your photos and your video, because I know, Cydney, you moderate a lot of the groups and stuff. And we see a lot of photo stuff, but whenever you guys post your work, and I mean this, that it's always really exceptional stuff, right? Like it's always really that next level. And even with, the videos and stuff, and I know the process that you guys put, behind that and kind of constructing all that. So how do you keep kind of pushing that, the limit, and kind of, how do you kind of take yourselves, keep kind of going and producing new stuff each and every time? How do you kind of keep raising the bar for yourselves?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I don't know. So part of the driver is we always want to produce good work for our clients too. I think that's probably the number one thing that drives us to keep producing and to keep producing excellent work, is that people see our work, they really like it, they want to envision themselves in similar photos. And so we try and take that and say, hey, yeah, we'll deliver. It never hurts to add to your portfolio. So we would have no incentive to not perform. And we like clients, and we tell our clients, like in consultations, say, if you want to do something crazy, then let's do something crazy. We've had engagement shoots where it was February and it was like 42 degrees out, and she wanted photos in the water, and by golly, we got photos in the water and our feet were frozen. And I was like in the water holding a light while Jason was taking photos, and they came out great. It looks like the middle of summer, but it was freezing cold. So we tend to have clients, at least now, that are willing to do that stuff. They want to go do those interesting and fun things to catch that cool photo. So
yeah, I think being transparent with your clients and stuff like that, I think, is a big one. A disappointed client is a client that sucks to work with, because you just want to be transparent. And when I try to, I guess we're talking about selling stuff, but when it comes to that, is being honest about what you can do and what you can't do, but also, being open about what they want. I think as a photographer, you have to be a lot of things. You have your style and you can be who you want, but your couples are always different, and what they want is going to be different. So you have to adapt to your couples and be okay with that. And I think that was a big learning thing of, like, I wanted to be stuck in my ways, and this is what I think is what's good. But what I think necessarily is good isn't necessarily good for my couples. So I think that's a big driving force, is to learn from what your couples want. And a lot of times they don't know what they want, and they hired you to know, for you to know what, so. But I tell my couples, hey, give me a mood board. What images do you like? What, or if I'm doing a video, what type of videos have you found online? Or I'll show them stuff from from Rob, the guy who has
Rob Adams.
Oh, yeah. That guy's an awesome videographer. And, his stuff is insane. And I look at my peers, and that's what I want to drive towards. So I want to find the best that's out there, and drive towards that. Whether it's a photographer that is really good with its business, but the photos aren't that great, but the business aspect is really good. I think
or personality,
or the personality, like taking all these traits from different peers and putting that into motion, into your own work, I think is going to make you a better just an all around well-rounded, better person for whatever you're doing, whether it's photography or videography. Trying to spit that out. That was hard.
Well, it's so hard because that's the thing is especially, it's not like just, you're not just running the business or you're not just running social media or you're not just taking photos. I mean, you got to be, genuinely pleasant to be around at weddings and not be stressed when things are going bad and not be, I mean, I just think people don't, couples just don't get like all the different stuff, all the different hats, right? That you have to be a marketer and an image caller and everything else. I mean, how do you kind of combine to work on all that together with both heads here kind of working on the company?
So I usually call, like when it comes to weddings, I'll usually call weddings. He did the last one, but it was a pretty small one. He's like, "Oh, I'm done." Oh, okay. But I usually go in and I call the weddings. I like to see the images with like the emotion and stuff like that. And I know which one, especially in my photos, I know which ones I would want to keep that he might not think of keeping. So I like to do the culling. And then he usually does the color editing. We use Capture One for that. Most people use Lightroom, but we're
you're being
different.
snobby.
No, I'm just saying we're different. And then he does all the color editing and the Photoshop as well. But when it comes to like family photos and stuff, I usually do all of those. He hates doing family photos. So I usually do those and then I'll call, and sometimes he'll color edit in Photoshop or sometimes I'll do it all. But we can both do all of it, but we just kind of break it up depending on what's going on in our lives.
And I think another one is like we both go on each other about like, oh, that photo really sucked. Like I get really irritated about stuff. I'm like, why is this way? And I'm really hard on Sid about that. And we'll just go off on each other on certain things. Like, so I think that's what drives us too, is that we're both like
competitive.
We're both really competitive. And, I think when we first started, it was like, who can get the better photo? It was kind of like this battle. And now it's not like that anymore. I know what Sid will deliver and she'll know what I'll deliver. And we have a trust now. I think being a couple and shooting together and being, having kids and working together, it's a whole nother type of thing. And some people can do it and some people can't. And in the beginning, it was really, really hard for us it was hard. Well, it was mainly me because I'm a control freak. It's true. I'm not going to deny it. And
he's not meticulous at all.
So I want everything to be perfect. And I hate it when things aren't. And weddings are totally unpredictable. And so it straightened me out real quick. I think it took 5 years for me to be like,
there were so many times.
Okay, this is what it's going to be.
There were so many times where he's like, I'm never shooting a wedding ever again. Here we are.
But I love it. I really do. I like the chaos of it because if I can create something from that, that's totally not what happened that day. Like we shot a wedding in fundamentalist Islamic, her brother.
Oh, it was a Muslim. Yeah, it was a Muslim, Ethiopian Muslim wedding. And we didn't actually do the ceremony. They had done that somewhere else or at another time. But we basically followed them around for the day and did photos of them in the bridal party. And then there was a big reception at the end of the night. And the girls partied on one side and the guys partied on another at this big banquet hall. And the brother of the groom was fairly fundamentalist. And I think was jealous because he had just gotten married like a year before with tea and cookies. And here his brother was throwing this huge party for his bride. Like huge party. Like
probably about 400 people.
There were a lot of people. But the girls were on one side, guys were on the other. Anyways.
They didn't cut the cake until 1 a.m.
Yeah, it was a long day. So the brother of the groom was... I think he was jealous, but he didn't like the girls dancing to secular music. They had a DJ who was a male on the girls' side playing music so the girls could dance. But he only wanted them to dance and play with just drums. So he was kind of almost threatened to kill the DJ at one point. From what we could tell, he had to like yell.
I had to stand up on this podium thing and like yell out to the group so the DJ can grab his stuff and run out the door because I basically was just yelling to get everyone's attention so he can leave. because it was like a mob. It was crazy.
It was
there were security guards there. And
yeah, the bride had hired security because she knew it was going to be an issue. Like, she was crying on her wedding day. You never want to see a bride cry. It was hard. I mean, that was way back in the day when we weren't charging our worth. We didn't know our worth. And I remember this couple hired us literally 4 days before their wedding. So their photographer had to leave the country for whatever reason. But I kind of think they bailed because they knew what was going on. But
and I think I think to go on with that is, like, as a photographer, you have to, I think when you're meeting with people, you have to read them and understand what they're going to, and that's where that transparency side thing comes into play. Is as a photographer, I need to know, like, certain things, and I think if we were more transparent with them and knew more about their family issues and stuff, that probably would have gone better. But we were doing photo and video that day with just 2 people, and it's insane. It was insane. So, and I think another driving thing is that it was our bread and butter. We had no other job. So now it's a little bit different. Things are a little bit different. Our aspects are changing, but that's a big driving force is I need to eat. So
pay the mortgage,
pay the mortgage, feed the kids. And I think that makes you want to be better in your work too, because if you suck and you get a bad review, or if your couples aren't talking, then you're not going to get work. So I think, that's another one. It's funny. We don't market that much. And if we did, we'd probably get more business.
I've been trying to be better at the Instagram,
but we're horrible about it. Yeah. And
getting better.
We've been doing the word of mouth thing for years and just having people talk.
We did start on Craigslist.
Yeah.
And actually one of our friends and clients, we shot their wedding in 2015. They found us through Craigslist back when we advertised on Craigslist, way back in the day. And she was like, I don't know about these people. I met them on Craigslist. And we're like, hey, we'll meet you at your house and, talk with you about whatever. And we just became really fast friends. We had kids that were similar ages, and they're some of our best friends. Hi, Amy and Jesse. We love you. They just moved a couple hours away, so we're really sad. But we've gotten more business from just them over the past 5 years than probably any other client. A lot of our clients talk us up, but she's given us a lot of clients. So
yeah, I think treating your clients good. I mean, that's the biggest. I think the best marketing you can have, because it's the best honest marketing you can have, is just doing well by your clients the best that you can. I've had my bad weddings. I've had my good weddings, but I always try to, make it a point to just, I get nervous at every wedding, and I've been doing it for so long. And I'm nervous because I'm like, I got to do something great all the time, or try to. I'm not going to say everything is great, but try to do something perfect all the time. And as a videographer, a wedding photographer, a DJ, your job is to make that day perfect, And I think that's what I want to see more in the industry, is that kind of attitude. I think that's a big one, because you get that kind of view, like photographers are like lawyers. In a sense of that aspect is, I hear a lot of like, well, my friend had this one photographer shoot their wedding and it was horrible, and the photographer did this and this.
We are a lot like lawyers, like trial
but
lawyers.
DJs
like looking for rings on fingers. Okay, the girl has a ring, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
They're engaged. I wonder if they've got a photographer yet. Come on, be honest. We all do it.
But then DJs deal with that too, like you'll get the drunk people at the wedding, or the DJ will get drunk, and then you get. I mean, I've had my fair share of seeing DJs destroy weddings just because of their unprofessionalism. So I think what I would love to see in the industry more, I'm going just snowballing into stuff, but I think I would like to see more.
Earpiece.
More like more professionalism in that regard, more respect for the client, because sometimes it's not there. I would say it's there's not a lot of that, but when you see it, it's a big deal for me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny. A couple quick notes. When you're talking about, where you guys are trying to pay the bills and stuff, it is so funny because, I'll have a lot of like kids that's like second shoot for me or whatever, and then like do video stuff on the side. And they're always like, well, gotta wait for that inspiration to hit to be able to like edit something or do whatever. And for us, where you're like, I can't wait for the inspiration to hit, especially where you guys have kids, right? You're like, I gotta, we gotta edit when we can, or we gotta shoot when we can, or you're at weddings, I gotta deliver when I can, because, we don't have that like leniency of, well, let me just see like when the inspiration's gonna hit, you know what I mean? That you gotta be on all the time,
Yeah. And, I think, work ethic's a hard one. It's like when I shoot a wedding, I want it to be out the door as soon as possible, because to me, it's just liability sitting on my computer, and I just want to get the liability out of the way and get that sent out. And so I try to make sure that stuff's sending out within 2 weeks after the event. And so I'll stress until it's done.
Well, that's it. Like waiting for the inspiration. I wish we all could afford to just wait to be inspired with our art. But it's not like that. You hear about starving artists, and yeah, it's a very, very common thing, but you can't wait for inspiration to strike, because you have to be, being an artist is more than just being an artist. This is what I want to say too, is that you have to be a business person, like you were saying, and you have to be a social media manager, and you have to be a decent person to be around. There's a lot of psychology involved with being a photographer too, and I think videographer as well, but you've got to read the moments. Like, you always know that a bride is probably going to hug her dad at the end of the father-daughter dance, right? Or that the groom might dip the bride at the end of their first dance. Sometimes they don't tell you, so we try and ask. But just like anticipating those things and like watching and reading the room and just kind of looking out of the corner of your eye, seeing what's happening. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think another pro tip for just like marketing side is like, once you're done with that wedding, that night I can't go to sleep until the cards are backed up. The cards have to be backed up. I've lost one card once. It happened once, and I would never allow that to happen again.
But it wasn't the full wedding. It was
I literally bawled. He bawled.
Cried.
I literally cried because I lost some photos. And
but fortunately we were like changing out our cards throughout the day. That was because that was before we could afford, 2 card camera slots. And so we would change them out throughout the day. So we're like, if we lost something, we only lost like part of something on one camera and not the other.
And what I was going to go on with that is I try to, the next day, I try to make sure to find a bunch of edits and post up my work as fast as possible and get it to their Facebook page or their Instagram, or any social media outlet. Those are the 2 popular ones. And I think that really helps, because you just gotta do it while it's fresh and while people are still waiting for those photos to come out, is like, get that stuff out to your client.
Especially if you can get it up before all their friends' cell phone photos get up on social media.
I'll edit like 50 photos and then put it on a gallery and put it as sample edits and get those to my couples. And then that way it's fresh into the market and fresh to their friends, because they're like, oh yeah, we were just at your wedding. So, oh, you got your photos already.
Well, and nothing kills me more than, when you get like the blurry cell phone shot, like they'll have it as their profile for like 6 months. And you're like, you got to get them that, get them those 15 or 20 images. Like, so totally. Cause they're going to post something. So it's like, you got to have it be your stuff,
And for video, I think that's a hard one, because you have to make a small edit and then you have to get your footage in. And that's a hard one, because you have to pull out your footage to find what you did that day, because weddings are chaotic when you're doing video, and you have to run through all your B-roll and run through all your dialogue footage and then write out your video. But I think that's another big thing, is I see a lot of the more successful photographers, videographers tend to like put out those highlight videos. And and that's another thing too, is I think with like video is a big one. I think that video is always going to have a mainstay. And I think photography, I don't know. I think photography will not be as big as video will be in the next 5 years.
But then I counter that by the fact that people don't necessarily frame a video on their wall. So,
unless you're at Hogwarts.
I'm always thinking about like an EMP happening or something and we lose all our data. And
Wow.
I'm actually going to pick up some prints from Costco later today of family photos because we are the worst at putting photos up on our wall.
It's no photos in our house.
And our oldest child is almost 7 and we have like no pictures up. So, I think prints are still going to be a thing. I think photos are still going to be a thing, but maybe people are going to start pulling stills from video. That might be a thing.
I think that's going to be a thing that's going to come up with 8K, and then eventually it'll get, cameras are getting more and more capable of doing these higher resolutions and pulling frames. And you could shoot the video and then pull frames from it to create your photography. And if you got shooting raw video, well, now you have that awesome capability of shooting raw, and being able to do those edits that you want to do. So I think the hybrid thing is going to get bigger I would say in the next decade, it's going to be huge. We're going to be hybrid people. We're going to do photo and video.
And you're going to have to adapt to, whoever's like, you could do just video or whatever, but photographers, we're all going to have to learn. If we don't know how, we're going to have to adapt at some point. I don't know. It's hard to know really where the future of things are going all the time.
But I think thinking about it.
I think thinking about it's important because if you don't adapt, you die. I mean, basic social Darwinism.
just knowing where things are going to go and adapting to that, I think is a big one to stay fresh in the market. I think about I'm 37, so I'd be 40 soon, right? And then 50 is going to be rolling up. And
he gets ahead of himself.
Well, no, but with kids, things just fly by, and so I'm just like, am I going to be that photographer who's 50 years old? And then you have all this young kids who are, putting out stuff that's just, the quality is insane. And they have this vibe, that you just don't have because you're old, and because it's true, the generation gaps and stuff nowadays and all the social things, I'm not going to get way into that, but it is there. And that always worries me is like, well, do I see myself doing this? And I think that's where we've been is like, I don't want to stop shooting, but there's a point where it's like, well, you got to retire. You got to figure it out.
Yeah. Do you want to be Cliff, or Joe Busink?
And so, it's weird. There's so many like weird little things like that I think about all the time. I don't know, like with you, I mean, you do video and that's your main thing. I guess I'm going to ask you though, like, wait, what got you into it?
I studied journalism, and so I studied print journalism, and one of the first classes we had was how to physically lay out a newspaper front page. So like we're not talking like content or like catchy headlines. We're talking like the physical margins on the page that they use to like print the newspapers.
So old school. Yeah. We're gonna have to explain that to our kids someday.
And I was like, this is the dumbest like thing that I could ever be studying right now. And I did, and I was like, I'm done with this, like absolutely right now. And I went and got into the radio, and then that segued into TV, and then I went and did that. But yeah, because I was like, okay, it would make sense to me if we were studying like, how to write, text to draw eyeballs, or how to do like catchy photos to get eyes to different parts on the page. But it was like, no, like these are the margins that we need to print so we can like cut. I was like, this is like so asinine. I can't even sit here anymore. So yeah, that's what I got. But it was, trying to get out of that. I was like, this is a dying technology. I got to get out of here, to answer your question.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's the social media aspect, and Instagram is the big one, I think, is in the marketing. We started out before all that stuff kind of came to be. And I think we're still stuck in like this old way of thinking. And so, market by word of mouth and stuff. But I think that eventually catches up to you, and that'll only work for so long. And with COVID happening and all that, and with the market kind of sloping the way it is, reinventing your business, I think right now is the best time to do it.
Everyone's redoing their websites right now.
Reinventing yourself, I think, is the big one. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of all this is a kind of a podcast.
He might have other questions.
Yeah, I guess. Too. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
He will talk your ear off. It's true.
That's okay. No, it's good. It's funny because you guys were talking about the old school, and I want to hear more about how you guys met. But when you were talking about, booking your clients off of Craigslist, because that's how I started too, with like I can't even remember what I used to post, but all the Craigslist stuff. And I will say, and there's other people that also frequent online message boards, on Facebook. That is my number one biggest sticking point now with like any new photo, video, like any vendor at all that like takes advantage of all these groups is like, man, go back and do it the way that like we used to do it with posting these like Craigslist ads and like fielding all like the weirdos and like posting every week. And like, I'm sure you guys, like, I'm sure the stories, and now it's, I can post to 4,000 people in 1 second, and it's all. I'm like, no, that's my biggest sticking point is like, go back and do it the way that we used to do it back in not even that long ago, but it feels like a long time ago, and you used to have to
like walking to school up hills both ways, basically. Oh yeah, Craigslist ads. It's like walking back to school. Walking to school up hills both ways. Back in my day, I remember someone. Some random person emailing us, telling us that our retouching was bad or something. We're like, why did you take your time out of your day to tell us that the photos sucked? Like, it's the same thing on Facebook nowadays. You're like, just keep scrolling. You don't need to say anything. But we've had that. And one of our good friends, Tim Kraus, actually met us through Craigslist too. He was just kind of doing product photography, just farting around with stuff. And he wanted to see if he wanted to get into weddings. And so he tagged along to about half a dozen weddings with us. One summer, I think I was pregnant with our first. And he realized he did not want to do weddings, that he did not want to be around people like that. They're way too stressful. So he had a successful video business, kind of like commercial video business for a while, which he just sold, and now he's selling property. He's like one of those serial entrepreneurs, but he does some interesting stuff. But yeah, we found him on Craigslist, and I mean, we met through Craigslist. He had posted something like, why can't I find smart women, who are sure about themselves, and da-da-da-da-da. And so my ex had broken up with me maybe like a month or so before then. And so I was bored and just browsing Craigslist. I like to read the rants and raves. It was fun. And I hopped on his, and I was like, I'm going to reply to him, and just something funny. So I said, "Dear Desperate" in Boise. And I was living in Boise at the time, going to school. And he thought it was, and I was like, hey, we're not all, like that. There are smart women out there still. And I guess he liked what I had to say, because then he like stalked me on the internet for a little bit. and then we met in person. Looking back, I was like, probably not the smartest thing, but I went to his apartment, which he happened to live down the road from where I was living at the time. And I made beer bread, which he said was the shit, but he really meant it was shit. I'm like, well, you got to eat it warm with soup, but he didn't have anything. So like, I remember going back to his fridge like a month later. I'm like, why is this still sitting in here?
I was like,
I thought you told me you liked it. He's like, no, it was awful.
It's really bad.
So, but we hung out. He was recording a band that day. I think that's why I felt safe. I was like, well, there's other people there.
yeah, that was in 08.
No.
No, 09.
It was 2010.
Well, yeah, but
it was end of 09, beginning of 2010. Yeah.
It's when the economy tanked in 08. And,
God. Everyone was miserable.
And so I made a recording studio in my apartment. Recording drums in my apartment complex.
You had wires going across your hallway upstairs, like it was,
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Were you a big fan?
What's that?
Were you a big fan of everyone in your apartment complex with the drum recordings?
Oh, I would I talked to my neighbor and be like, okay, so I'm recording drums. Is that okay? And they're like, yeah, we're not going to be there. I was like, sweet. And so I try to find days when they weren't doing anything. But yeah, I recorded a lot of like funk bands and jazz bands, death metal bands, and a lot of hip hop and stuff. And
a lot of really bad music too.
Some bad music, some good music. And that was another thing, is I was like, well, I hated dealing with people when it came to music, because everyone was a diva. I'm going to be the best. I'm going to be the next come up of everything. And I'm like, no, you're not. You really suck at what you do, but then I started finding out, I was like, I really liked recording people because I liked teaching people how to be better. That was an interesting turnaround about that, instead of like being stuck up. And when Lavender Bouquet started coming out, I had a YouTube channel and stuff called Photofied. It's still on there, but
you had like 4,000 whole subscribers.
Oh yeah. And if I kept it going, it could have worked out, but there's so much informational videos out there on YouTube and stuff. And I was just like, I'm just not going to be another person to saturate that market. So I just
made
stopped.
like $600 over several years on that channel.
Yeah. I was like,
but we did book one wedding, actually. This couple out in Chicago, in the Chicagoland area, booked us for their wedding, flew us out there, and we shot their wedding several years back. So that was from the YouTube channel. So it was pretty fun.
Yeah. So, but I think teaching people is what I really enjoy. But, every photographer does that. They're like, well, I don't do it anymore, so now I'm just going to start teaching. But I think there's just so much more. There's so much information out there. It's like, I'm like, nah, I'm not going to teach it. Because you can go online and there's so much, just a plethora of information. It's like, what I'm going to say is not going to matter. So I stopped my YouTube channel and stopped doing that. But I was passionate about it for a while, about like wanting to like get people informed about how to do things when it came to photography.
I think we should start it back up, but that's just
yeah. So
like, update 4 years later, guess what?
But I think like photography in general, when it comes to taking pictures of people, it's the psychology of the individuals and getting to inside their head. The challenge of getting someone to laugh or to, do something that you want from them, and being able to communicate that in a way that works. I can't even communicate this that way. But I mean,
like everyone's like, well, I'm not a model. I'm not good in front of the camera. I'm like, I'm not a model. He's not a model. Like 95% of our clients aren't models. Every once in a while you'll get one who's like, oh yeah, I did modeling, or, they're into pageants or whatever. So they know what they're doing. But for the most part, no one knows how to be in front of a camera. And so we learned how to be in front of a camera so that we can help other people learn to be in front of the camera, and we're not shy about like, hey, we've got chins. people laugh. We kind of do this.
Communication.
So laugh like this.
Communicating with your client, whether it's a bride or groom. I've had groomzillas, I've had bridezillas. And I think saying, hey, you have this issue. And if you want it to look good as a photographer, you've got to tell your client what you want. If you don't tell them what you want, you're never going to get what you want. And so if you can't open your mouth and you want to sit there and be a wallflower, you're never going to get what you want. And then you're never going to grow as well. So you get nothing from it. And then your client gets nothing from it. And so you have to be driven to communicate and be like, your shoulder looks I'm going to be honest, but push your shoulder back, do this. Well, they already know these things about themselves. And that's why they hired you, is because they want to know how to fix these issues so they look, good in their photo.
They look their best.
Look their best. And
that's why we use a lot of self-deprecating humor when we're talking to our clients, and we always do engagement shoots for almost all of our weddings. So we get to know them, and we're not all like, hey, on the wedding day, all awkward. And so we get to know them, and they get to know how to be in front of the camera as well. So we always kind of do a little rundown, like, hey, there's, here's some basic poses that you might do. Some of us have problems with this. Some of us have problems with chins or whatever, or some of us are blinkers. You find that out really quick. Like, oh, got a blinker. So
men always have a hard time holding their bride.
They always have their hand.
Yeah, they always have their hand on the side, and seeing photos like that, the body language of a couple, I think, is a big one.
Act like you love each other, close the gaps, bring it in, and we show them, we're like, hey, does this we'll have them just stand there just kind of bored, or we'll do it ourselves. And we're like, does this look better? Or does this look better? And then we'll do a pose, and we're like, oh, that looks way better. Okay, I get it. So we try and use ourselves as examples.
So we do the free consultation. We do free consultation. We do free engagement shoot with our package, because then what we get to do is we get to educate our clients on how to pose. And then that way, the day of the wedding, we're not like, hey, how you guys doing? We talked, I took your money, and now we're going to shoot your wedding. Instead, it's like, hey, now you know what to do. We know each other now more because you understand what I have to do as a photographer to get things out of you. And then the day goes a lot smoother. And I do it with video as well. As I'll do a couples session with them and shoot a couples video. And
like an engagement video.
Yeah. And then what I'll do is I'll have them come to my house and we'll record. I'll say, I want you guys to write letters to each other, but I don't want both of you guys to read that letter to each other. Right. So he writes a letter to her, she writes a letter to him. And then I record it, both of them separate. They both don't know what they said. And then I make that couples video and I intertwine that dialogue in the couples video and the wedding video. And then what I'll do is I'll play the couples video at the wedding. They've never seen it before. And then they'll hear this dialogue of things that they were saying to each other that they haven't heard before. So it's kind of like you're giving them a gift. And so we bring a projector. This is why I don't do videos as much.
Since we did it,
but I'd bring a projector and a big screen and a high definition projector, and I'd jack into the DJ's system and play that video at their wedding.
And then we get to capture the reaction.
And then I get to capture the reaction of them watching the video. And then I get that dialogue, and then I use some of that dialogue because I don't put it all into the video because I want to save it for their actual video. And then, because I think a big one that I see when I do videos, I only will do like 2 a year because they take a lot out of me, is I think dialogue's a big one. Because you see a lot of mashups of music, and then you just have B-roll with music, and that's kind of montagey. But I think if you could do you do the dialogue with the montage and the toast, and then trying to create the story with it. That's one thing that I really like doing. But it's just so much. It's just so much work. But like I said, technology makes it better. When we do video, we run with gimbals now. Motorized gimbals and stuff like that. And then, multiple cams and stuff, but those, yeah. And I still do videos and I get asked for them, but I ask a lot of the client. I'm like, this is what I need from you. If you can't do this, then I won't work for you. And I think that's another thing when it comes to photography is like,
it's a two-way street.
It's a two-way street.
You're only going to get out what you put into it. It's
like
getting a college education, right?
Like the
You're
money,
only going to get out what you put into it.
You need the money and you need a job, but I'd rather make my client happy than take their money and make an unhappy client, right? Then you're just like stoking the fire even more. I think as a professional, that job's right for me, or no, that job's not right, or I'm not probably the person for you. And I think not a lot, I would say there's some other photographers, I don't know who they might be, but I'm just saying I see it where they'll get stuck and they won't say no to a job that they probably should have said no to.
Or they'll undercut themselves. We've been seeing that a lot lately.
Yeah, that's
in photo and video, especially because of COVID. We're all desperate, and a lot of people are basically not making, because if you put in all the hours you spend posting on Facebook and Instagram and culling, editing, managing your client accounts, emails, all this, taking care of your gear, when you put all those hours into it, sometimes you're not even making minimum wage. And then, then you got taxes and all these other things. So I think we, as an industry, really have to take a look at what we're doing. There's some good groups out there, like Facebook groups, that are trying really hard to bring up the bar and say, hey, you're worth more, charge what you're worth.
And people say there's a wedding tax, right? You hear that a lot. And I think that needs to be clarified, but that there is a wedding tax, but I don't think when it comes to photography and videography, I think videographers need to charge more.
Way more. Like
way more.
Yeah.
It's way more work. Video is way more work, period, than it is for photos. And people think, oh, well, you're just taking video. It's not a big deal. No, you're collating a story that's, cohesive to the day. And if the day goes to crap, you still have to make it cohesive in video, and video doesn't lie.
And you have to have not just camera gear, but you have to have audio gear. You have to know.
There's so much more equipment that comes with it.
Yeah,
lighting
there's a lot more.
You need lighting for the reception, for video lighting. I spent $1,800 on video lighting with battery packs and stuff for video, for doing reception lighting. That stuff gets expensive. And so I think videographers definitely need to charge. I would say video should be charged twice as much than, your competitor in photography. And I think photographers definitely need to, the amateurs and stuff that are feel like, they're just devaluing themselves. I know a lot of photographers that do excellent work, and I'm like, you need to charge more.
I've just learned to, I'll see newer photographers, on wherever, and I'm like, oh, they are really good work. And then I go and look at their pricing, and I'm like, you are undercutting yourself. I'm not necessarily, a lot of us complain about the market as a whole going down and us not being able to make money, but I want these people to make money too, as they're doing great work. There's enough work to go around. And there have been photographers I've reached out to and I said, hey, you're worth more. You need to charge more. And they're like, oh my gosh, I needed to hear that. Thank you so much. I was just struggling with that. I'm like, yeah, for sure. You are worth way more than what you're charging. I actually have a neighbor who I was going on a walk. I went on a walk with the baby like several months ago, and ended up talking with her husband, just chatting. And I don't remember how photography came up, but anyways, and then he's like, oh, my wife's really trying to get into photography and stuff. And so, she would love to talk to you. So I talked with her and everything. And I looked at her work. I was like, you have good work. Why have you not been charging people? So now she just launched her website, and she's really active on Instagram. And I'm like, here's some ideas for gear if you want, or here's some ideas for this and that. And she just shot her first solo wedding, and it's beautiful. And so it's super exciting to see other people say, hey, I'm worth more, and doing that for themselves.
Because there's a thing too, that people feel like there's not enough work out there. There is so much work out there. There is so much work out there. There really is. The only reason why you don't have any is because you're doing something wrong. And that's really what it comes down to. If I'm not getting work, it's because I'm doing something wrong. It's not because the industry is. And that's, I think, is a big one.
Or there's a global pandemic.
Or there's a global pandemic.
And the government won't let you work.
But even with this, I know photographers that are getting work and staying busy, and it hasn't really affected their bottom line. So it's really your drive. If you want it, then you'll get it. If you don't want it, then you don't deserve it. And that's like everything in life. Drive is a big one. I think you just have to push yourself. And I want to see more of that, I think, in the industry is like, peers coming in instead of, I see that a lot where people are just, putting people down, in our industry. And I think we need to bring people up more, that's because it's going to help us all, and you have these individuals that they have, their significant other who goes to work, and then photography is a hobby that makes extra income, right? So those people are like, well, I don't need to feed my kids, so I can charge less, right? And that's another thing.
But in reality, you should be charging more.
You should be charging more.
And work less.
People are like, gosh, these greedy photographers, they always want all this money. These greedy videographers, but no, it's not that. It's that your value, the value of something, is understanding your value. Every year I spend close to about anywhere from 1 year, $22,000 in equipment, because I have to get new equipment because technologies change, things break. And
people steal stuff.
We had $10,000 worth.
No,
not $10,000. It was $6,000, but it cost us $10,000 to replace of equipment. Because of our due diligence to not lock our trunk or lock our car and this was at our house, right in our driveway. And I got video of it. We got the guy, and so
he's in prison right now.
He's in prison, but those little things come up. Right. And so if let's say you have 25 weddings coming up and you lose all your equipment, and now you have to come up with that money and you're not making enough. Now you don't have enough to rebuy that equipment that you've been, putting on for a couple of years. And now you have to get a big loan, and you're just shooting yourself in the foot.
If you can get a loan.
So if you saved your money and you marketed yourself and you put value in yourself, then you'll put yourself in a better position when things go wrong. So when that happened, I was like, here we go, got to buy another camera, because, and to me, when I first started, it was about equipment. And I think nowadays I'm just like, it's a camera's a hammer, and you just shouldn't have put a nail in the wall. I can take a good photo with a $300 camera. All these it's all about the perspective of the composition and, what you're trying to convey in your image, and lighting and all this stuff. Those are the things that matter. Equipment really does. I mean, it does, to a certain extent, it matters, but I think people, you have the gearheads, you have these people who are like this equipment and that. And I think that gap's closing now, because everything's good nowadays. For the most part, especially Nikon, Canon, the Sony.
We've been shooting Sony since 2014. We switched to mirrorless 6 years ago, as of next month.
We're doing the Tony and Chelsea thing.
Oh gosh, no. But it's, we've adapted. It's fun. It's been fun to see everyone switch over, like people leaving Canon and Nikon and going to Sony. And I'm come to the dark side.
We did something where we shot weddings for 2 years using manually focused lenses. So no autofocus.
Because we couldn't afford the autofocus lenses. So.
And we did it, and we were like, I really don't want to go back to autofocus, because we love the manual side of things because it slowed us down. And for video, it was great to an extent, But if you're running with a gimbal, of course, autofocus is great to have. But so we shot weddings manually, and that really brought up our game. And I recommend I recommend
at least try
it. It's great. So I think putting yourself in challenges, putting yourself to do something that you normally wouldn't do, that's another great thing to do for yourself to better yourself. I never thought in my life that I would ever become a photographer. Like, what do you do for a living? Oh, I just shoot weddings. But when I really think about it, I think I'm God. I shoot weddings. But other people are like, oh, you're just a wedding photographer, you know? And to me, I have a lot of pride about wedding photography because you're capturing someone's day and it's their only day. And you're trying to create something that's, you know, hopefully great and doing that. And I think
you don't get a reshoot either.
Yeah. It's like Pokemon Snap.
Gotta catch them all.
You gotta catch them all, you know, just catching photos, just taking photos. It's like a video game for me. Can I get the best photo this day? Or
getting pictures of everyone at the wedding. That's been like the last couple of years. We've had weddings where, you know, maybe a week or two later, someone's like, hey, my stepdad died, you know, and I just want to let you know that picture that you took at the wedding really meant a lot to me. And having other family members pass away recently really has kind of given us a new perspective on weddings, because they are like family reunions and a lot of people won't see each other for a long time. And so we've kind of made it this little internal goal to take at least a flattering picture of every single person at the wedding, and, you know, with their significant other or with their family or whatever. And
I'll come up to Sid and I'll be like, I think I got them all. I think I got everyone at the wedding. And so at the end of the day, my goal is to make sure that I take a photo of everyone. I used to not be this way. I'd just be like, I need to get the couple, I need to get these things. But it was always about like, I come up to Sid at the last one. I was like, I got them all. I think I got them all. You know, did you think I forgot anyone? And so, yeah. And yeah, it's because that story of that photo of that guy dying, of that family member dying, that was a big one. Yeah. That kind of struck a chord. Would be like, these photos are really important. So, and I did on the wedding front too, I did a wedding and I said, well, hey, you know, they're like, well, we want photos and video. And I said, well, what's more important to you? Because one's going to get neglected more than the other. It always happens if you're doing a hybrid thing. And she's like video or photos. And so we did the video thing and she's like, oh, the video is so much more funner. You know, and she liked the wedding, the photos, but she's like, that video, she's like,
it was weird switching gears too, because we were like doing video for basically all the candid stuff was video, and then all the formal things were photo. And so switching gears, we're like, gotta switch everything up and do the formal photos. And then, so it's like their gallery is just formal photos of them and their, you know, their families and their bridal party and stuff. But then doing the video, I think that was really the only way that we could do photo and video at the same time with two people. Like, it's at least to what we would like to deliver.
I think three people, like for video, nice. 3 people for video is great. If you can get 4, that's awesome. I think having a crew of people is the way to go. It's hard. It's hard. And yeah, the hybrid thing though is where we definitely started at. That was a big one. I remember bringing, you'll love this. I remember bringing a crane, those mini cranes with the weights to weddings. Yeah, I was like insane. I was like, I'm going to do a jib shot on this cake. I think about all this stuff now.
Or you'd like attach it to the end of a light stick or whatever and kind of just do like a, you know, no one would ever know. And then you get drones, and then that makes it a lot easier to do those types of shots without bringing a bunch of stuff with you. But
yeah, I think more now than anything, I used to like try out all this different equipment and find out ways of different workflows. And I think that's another like another tip is like your workflow. Find a workflow for your wedding. Find something that works, and then stick with that and perfect it and get it better and better. And I think right now, be simple. Have something that is simple, that is effective, and just keep on perfecting that.
Because I'm like looking up at our shelf with a bunch of old flashes, and
I have like 24 stands over there of just crap. I have like 16 flashes sitting
I'm like,
up there.
well, maybe we should sell it. And he's like, but what if we need it? So, but it's like we have a big, how big is that parabolic umbrella?
I have a 72-inch parabolic.
72-inch parabolic umbrella.
I used it for one wedding. I was like, we needed to shoot this big group. And I was like, well, we're going to need a lot of light.
So one wedding and then maybe like 1 or 2 studio shoots. And it's just sitting there, just chilling. Our kids could probably like turn it into a playhouse if they wanted to.
But yeah, I think, photography is weird because you have to be like a gearhead too, to an extent. Not everyone is, but every photographer has a little bit of it in them, but that eventually ends. And now I'm just like, I just need my camera, some good lenses and some good light, and I'll be all right. I need to make a t-shirt that says that. But before it was just like, I need all this stuff in order to create this perfect production, but
you really don't.
You really don't. We really don't. Oh, these earbuds suck. But anyways, we're totally rambling. So
you're totally
yeah, I am.
That's okay.
I should just go hide somewhere. But yeah,
we got it. We did it. You guys have fun?
Yeah.
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 That was great.
Yeah.
If people want to learn more about you guys and your wonderful photo and video, where would you have them check out?
Our
website, even though it's getting worked on right now, but it's up. We have our work in there, and what's there needs to be there. So it's
lbpseattle.com, even though we don't live in Seattle, but it's our major metropolitan area. And then we're also on Facebook, Lavender Bouquet Photography, and on Instagram at Lavender Bouquet Photo.
Yep.
Perfect. Good job, you guys. I'm glad we could get you both on today. It's been fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Thank you.
Thanks for setting up everything. It looked great.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Well, if you're like Cydney and Jason and you're interested in coming on a future episode of the podcast, you can go to bestmadevideos.com/podcast guest. And that's a nice, easy questionnaire to get you into the system. We've got a great, this is number 4 or 5 now of just really fun, new. It's been like a surge in the last week. So I'm so glad that you guys could come on and kind of join. So it's been really fun. I felt like back in March, I would get all this, whatever. And now it's coming in August, but it's great. I'm so glad to get all these new voices on that we haven't featured before. So thank you guys so much again. And this has been another episode of Get to Know Your Wedding Pro. Check back next week for another wedding vendor interview. Thanks so much.
No problem. Thank you.